build upon Heda's kōrero around this relevance and use the kupu kurahuna?
Kurahuna.
Kurahuna, nice, I love that. So I'm going to talk in the paku kōrero, the short kind of kōrero, around the building upon the use of reo in session, particularly around whakataukī and whakataukī. So within clinical practice, there are lots of different ways that people use whakataukī in different means. Within acceptance commitment therapy and DBT, people have these stock kind of metaphors that they give, because these metaphors provide a framework for understanding people's challenges. But then there are stock ways that people give out whakataukī, and sometimes it's a little bit like jam on top. It's like, it's just a side piece instead of being the centerpiece for the mahi. So we can introduce whakataukī, but we can also build metaphor around whānau kōrero, and we can co-create whakataukī. So in today's kōrero, I'm going to show some of the ways that you can explore whakataukī and whakataukī with whānau, but also how you can respond to metaphorical language within session and co-create whakataukī. And in that, I've got an example to show. So the first thing, figurative or metaphorical language, is just, it's symbolic. So it's when we use another word to represent something we're talking about. And sometimes it's what they call hyperbolic. That's a terrible word, by the way. But all that means is, it's, she's looking at, I use terrible words all the time.
Yeah.
It's just taking something to extreme. It's like saying, you know, I bought my computer and it cost an arm and a leg. Really? Yeah, so hyperbolic, but that's sometimes to make things engaging and entertaining or to make a point. So there's some examples: a journey, a volcano, deep, being dumped on, things like this as being figurative language. Now, what I want to point out, this is normal, okay? I mean, with people, we're using a metaphorical language about 1 in every 10 to 20 words. So we're using this all the time. This is not something we might do every now and again. So metaphors are when you're using a concept and you're overlaying that onto a life issue or something. So you're bringing two things together. So here I've got my son's stomach was a bottomless pit. So bottomless pit representing hunger in my son's stomach. So that's a metaphor. However, proverbs are wisdom statements that have been handed on through the generations. They're generally memorizable. They are not a specific set way of doing things. Some of them are clear warnings. Some of them are a little bit deeper and difficult to understand. So they're the closest thing to our category of what a whakataukī or whakataukī is. And that's what we call a proverb. So how do we, why do we respond to it? Why is it important? Is it just to try and be culturally appropriate in some ways? No. So let's have a look at some of the benefits of responding to metaphorical language. So when we're listening to people represent what's happening for them, we're getting to an insight in how they view themselves, the world, and how they address challenges. We're getting to understand about their thinking styles. If I'm working with someone and I'm using a metaphor and they're not grasping it, they might be a much more concrete thinker. And also, when we have a metaphor or a whakataukī or a proverb, we have some safe distance. We can be talking about something quite beautiful that represents something quite difficult. It gives us some distance, so when we feel more confident, we can get closer and closer to the actual issue, but there is some safety in the use of metaphor. Proverbs, whakataukī, even metaphors themselves hold a complex array of emotions, actions, history, and learning in the short statement. And if you look at the kōrero on the top of your screen, it's a rare privilege to be able to reach out to the ancestors and touch their minds. The best thing about that is it's a metaphor describing what a metaphor is. I think it's a bit of a cracker. But when we are utilising and exploring particularly whakataukī and whakataukī, there is authority that comes with that and wisdom. So you are connecting with that that's been passed down. So it adds meaning to your work. And finally, with the process of wānanga, it stimulates a deeper analysis, so understanding of context and meaning beyond the obvious. So it opens up different pathways in the brain to really explore things. And that's what we want in changing therapy and the work with our people. So we're going to move on and we're going to look at if we are going to be using practitioner-introduced metaphors, so if you're bringing a whakataukī in session, let's have a look at some of the kind of issues that pop up when we do that. So, rumaki, so you've got to look deeper within when you're looking at a whakataukī. So, because it does not translate. If you translate a whakataukī from Māori to English, it doesn't mean you now understand what is being said because of the symbolic nature of language. So in order to understand, and this is in all the literature around Proverbs from all around the world as well, you've got to understand the whakapapa of the people and the context over time that they have lived in order to understand what things may mean when they're talking about it. And that's the same as their environment as well. Ocean is not just a beautiful thing. You know, you've got to understand about the ocean and potentially what the oceans are like around New Zealand. It might be different from another country because a lot of the whakataukī, whakataukī that we use uses elements of nature and life to represent what's happening with us because of our connection. Horopaki. So if you are looking at a whakataukī or whakataukī, if you can explore why it might have been written when or where, it adds depth to looking at the meaning within the whakataukī. However, I mean, for most whakataukī, we just don't know where they come from and who said them, but you can explore what might have been happening at that time or when that was. So we're going to move in, and this is quite beautiful, really. The voice of the sea speaks to the soul. The touch of the sea is sensuous, enfolding the body in its soft, close embrace. I wish I could write like that. So that's an American author from the 1900s. And then we look at this one. Ko tōu aroha, e riti ana ki te pūpūtai, ko ngā piki, ko ngā heke, o tōku ngākau. So your love is like the sea foam, rising and falling over my heart. Ahakoa. If we understand the context and the taio from Te Reo Māori, the pūpūtai, the sea foam, is actually often used to represent disturbance. So when translated, that still sounded beautiful. But what I'm saying is, you are the disturbing thing in my life, you know, kind of ripping my heart up and down. Here you are. She didn't write that for me, but you know, hey. All right, so let's look at how we introduce whakataukī within session, and we're going to give an example of how we do things within He Puna Whakata with the whai tikanga card sort, and then you can still use this in introducing any of the other whakataukī you have access to. So what we have here is we have an example on the right hand side of a whakataukī card, or this is a whakatauaki on this card, but on one side has a, this is a tongikura, sorry. On one side it has a value, and on the back it has a tongikura, which gives depth to its meaning. So what we do is we support whānau to engage in selecting their own. So instead of going, here's a whakataukī or whakatauaki that represents your issue because this is how clever I am, we allow them to explore what sticks out for them. And each of, particularly these cards, they are associated with Te Whare Tapawha and each of the taha of Te Whare Tapawha. So we guide them through a process of kind of getting closer and closer to a shorter selection of cards that might be important for guiding them forward in the current part of their journey in life, their current challenges, their current area of development. And we start off with a really light analysis. You know, you see kind of, you know, you selected this, what resonates with you, what's on top. So this is a really surface level. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you some of the deeper areas of exploration that align with what Hedda and I have been talking about. So with the process of wānanga, so as we've talked about, have a look at the kupu. What do they say, but also what might they represent? So you could take apart a whakataukī written down and really explore that. Well, then we move on to, you know, are there any clues to where, when, or why this might have been said at the time? We then move on and we go, you know, so what are the messages and values implied within this message? And then we're moving forward to, we're bridging, so we wānanga on the whakataukī or the whakatauaki or the tongi kura. You might have an excerpt from an ori, whatever it has, and then you move to, because remember they have selected this because it touches their heart in some way. How does this relate to you? It could be to their whānau, hapu or iwi, so their stories. How does this relate to you? Or their challenges or strengths. So you want to bring out, because they've selected it, so you're starting to bridge and extend and explore that with them. And then we're moving across to how we can move that understanding and we can extend some of the elements. So how can some of these elements, symbols, or stories be extended to provide a pathway to healing, deeper understanding, or build a narrative to well-being? There is a range of things that might come up within a whakataukī that we might be able to provide a different angle on. It might mention an atua, it might mention an element of nature in which we can add knowledge into and bridge onto a narrative towards well-being. So this is not just slapping jam on a nice scone. I would like a nice scone with some cream, but anyway, it's not just doing that. It is really making this the main meal. All right, now, we're going to move on, and I'm going to talk about responding to the use of metaphorical or figurative language within session. And once again, this is the norm. And a lot of this is taken from some of the kōrero from Fiona Matheson from Otago University, who did her PhD on the use of metaphors. And one of the